While we were heading back, the other lead helicopter was still engaged with the enemy combatants, shooting at the PJs and the surviving pilot. We had to make it back to them fast, as we are still largely isolated from other friendly forces, as they are not aware yet. Parts of my tan flight suit will stay covered in blood, as we had no time to change, nor did we really give a shit. As I continued to care for my crew member and friend, I would watch the life slip from his eye every 3 to 4 minutes. This scared the living hell out of me. Please don't fucking die. Holy shit, don't fucking die. As Jim's movement would stop and he would close his eyes as if trying to fall asleep, I would slap the living shit out of him and scream, "Wake up, Jim! Wake the fuck up!" I knew his pain was great, and the slap across his helmet would not cause any more, but it did cause him to open his eyes and stay with me. Every time he closed his eyes, my hand met the side of his helmet. I didn't want him to get comfortable. We were almost there to the hospital. Fight, motherfucker! Fight! Finally, we get to Bagram Air Base, where we declare an emergency and hover taxi to the hospital drop-off point. Of course, we called the radio operators at the hospital, telling them we were inbound with an urgent surgical patient, hoping that they would be ready for us when we pulled up to the fence. Nope. We arrived, and no medical personnel were there to meet us. We continued to call them over the radio, telling them, "We are here, please send out a stretcher." This was about 90 seconds of waiting, but it felt like an eternity. Fuck it, we decided collectively. We'll bring him in ourselves. So many things we could have done differently or better, but in the heat of the moment, we just did. The co-pilot hops out of his seat and leaves the pilot with the controls alone. The pilot in command, Major Bryant, was a 120% competent pilot and had thousands of hours flying, so leaving him in a zero-threat environment alone on the sticks was nothing. Me and the co-pilot decided to carry Jim to the hospital, which was 150 meters away. If I could provide a visual depiction of Jim, he is 6 feet tall and weighs about 220 pounds. With all of his equipment, he was close to 280. Speed was our goal, as he was very close to falling further into unconsciousness. The co-pilot grabbed his legs, and I grabbed his chest by interlocking my fingers under his armpit. Pulling him to the door caused him more pain, which I hated doing, but it also proved that he was still alive and breathing. We began to carry him to the hospital, and it was the most physically exhausting task we both had ever taken, because not only did Jim have all of his gear on, so did we. We struggled to move him fast, but luckily, a Marine lieutenant saw us carrying our bloodied friend and ran over to help us further carry Jim to the hospital. We bust through the emergency room doors and scream, "We need help," and the doctors rushed to our aid with a stretcher and took Jim for immediate surgery. We give the doctors a briefing of what happened to us and the extent of his injuries to the best of our knowledge. Then we say our quick goodbyes and tell Jim we'll see him later. By this time, he is out cold, so he doesn't hear anything we say. We ran back to our helicopter, where we still had a mission to do: rescue the pilots, support our lead aircraft, and protect the PJs. We taxi to the fuel pit to get some more gas and perform a battle damage assessment of the helicopter. We're looking for smoke, fire, vibrations, and equipment clearly not operating correctly. The BDA check is good, and we determined we can still fly the helicopter. We called our commander in the TOC to give him an update of the situation. We also headed back to the squadron area to pick up a new crew member, call sign Scuba, who had been woken up during his sleep, to replace Jim. We pick him up and give him the details of the operation. He acknowledges, takes his seat, and prepares for flight. The poor bastard had to sit in the same seat where Jim was just hit, with all the damage from the bullets still present, and Jim's blood still pooled on the cabin floor. We didn't have time to clean the cabin, so when Scuba asked, "Whose blood is this?" "It's Jim's," I replied, "but he'll be okay. He's in surgery." The pilot asked, "Is everybody ready?" Without any preservation, we all answered with our crew positions and acknowledged we were ready. Right, left. We taxi and take off back to the battlefield, where we would spend the next 4.5 hours attempting to complete our mission. That untouchable feeling slowly faded as the mission persisted forward. Today may be the day we die in a fiery blaze of glory. I've never been this scared in my whole life to where I could feel it all over my body. But the biggest fear is not performing and doing your job. Everything else is bullshit. Do your job and die if you have to, but do your damn job. Your crew needed you. My crew needed me. We trucked back out to the crash site where by this time the whole fucking country knew what was happening. There was an aircraft down and it was proving difficult to reduce them. So what does the US military do? They throw everything they can at it. This was great, but also caused some problems as every commander wanted a piece of this rescue. What assets did they send us? 2 A-10s, 2 F-15s, 1 CH-47, quick reaction force with a platoon of infantry, and 2 AH-64 aircraft. All those air and ground assets were a comfort for us, but it overcrowded the battle space, which was a valley called the Alizé. As we headed back to meet up with Pedro 83, who had been fighting alone for about 40 minutes, they were on their way back to Bagram due to rescuing the surviving pilot, but also because of excessive battle damage that caused their transmission system to leak all of its oil. We entered the battle space to make contact with our PJs on the ground, who are lower than snake shit, trying to avoid the incoming fire from the enemy. At this point, we still don't know who the fuck is shooting at us. We had the AH-64 saturate the area as much as possible before we made another approach to the area. The PJs had been battling for almost 70 minutes alone, trying to figure out how to retrieve the dead pilot from the helicopter. Every attempt they made was thwarted with heavy machine gun fire. The game plan for us was simple and the same as it always was. But there was so much resistance this day that it almost became impossible to retrieve the pilot. We would make multiple attempts when we received the clearance from the other aircraft for deconfliction. Buy Endless Transition with the link below to read more.